Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the 16th episode of Arab Identity, titled today The External War on Arab Identity. The music that has been presented to you in the waiting period is by artist Hadi Al Diba. Tonight's episode is called The External War on Arab Identity. When we say identity, we're not talking about a passport. Identity is a system, a language you think in, a memory you inherit, an imagination you dare to use, institutions that turn imagination into education, economy, media, and law and art, that tells your story before someone else sells it back to you as a stereotype. And that's why identity is never left alone, because whoever owns the story owns the direction. Today is not about slogans, it's about urgency. What Arab identity actually is and why it's targeted. Before we jump into the subject, let's define Arab identity. And we're going to define it in a way that empires don't like. And we're going to define it in a way that many in both the Arab world and outside the Arab world, they fight and they try to mute this type of definition of the Arab identity. And it's part of this external war that we are talking about. Identity is a language as a living tool. Also, it's not only language. Identity is also science. It's also poetry. It's also law. It's comedy. It's prayer. It's protest. Identity is made up of also collective memory, of a shared memory. People who have a shared memory, they have a collective identity. The Arab world, from Iraq and the Gulf all the way to Mauritania, they have had a shared memory for 1200 years. They've had enemies attack them as a whole, and they have defended themselves as a whole. Whether it was the Crusades or whether it was the Mongolians who have attacked Baghdad in 1258, and they were defeated when the Arab tribes united together in fighting them back. Whether it was the freeing of Jerusalem from one of the crusades by Salah ad-Din, also done by a collective identity and a collective effort. A collective memory of history, of the struggles, of the literature, of the music, the shared culture, shared elements of traditions. It's not nostalgia as much as it is a continuity. An identity has to be a continuous identity to be a live identity. And the Arab identity is a continuous identity, while the Pharaoh identity is not, and the Phoenician identity is not, and the Canaan identity is not. The collective imagination also forms one of the pillars of identity. The right to say we can build a future. The aspirations for the future also unites one identity. Also institutions, the publishing, councils, unions, governments, cultural centers, anything that makes identity durable. And art, common art, whether it is poetry or music, people rehearse their freedom and identity through these arts. So the external war isn't only bombs, although bombs are a major part of it. It's also a war on the meaning of identity. It's a war on the pillars of identity. And we're going to discuss today in this episode how these attacks can be seen and defined in history and in today. It's a war sometimes comes in the shape of renaming a region, renaming the people, renaming their resistance, and then telling them that they're not ready for self determination. They're not ready for self rule. And what's interesting is throughout history, the colonial mind has always said the quiet part out loud. They have made it really easy for history to document the way the colonial mindset is. In the 19th and early 20th century, colonial officials and theorists didn't always hide their logic. Sometimes they wrote it down with terrifying confidence. Take Lord Cromer, for example, Britain's top man in Egypt. He wrote in Modern Egypt that accuracy is adorned to the Oriental mind. That's not analysis. That's a political weapon disguised as observation. Because if you label a people as irrational, you can claim that they don't deserve sovereignty. And Cromer went further, saying, want, want of accuracy degenerates into untruthfulness. They lie, therefore we rule. Then he takes a swing at Arabs directly, claiming singularity deficient in the logical faculty. So Lord Cromer, the British man in Egypt, consular from about 1883 till 1907, a period in which many of the colonial plans were drawn, describes Arabs as deficient in the logical faculty. That's a direct attack on the Arab identity. The people who have put the basis of all the sciences and discoveries in the world are described by a British colonialist as such. And he has a very high position and influence in which his thoughts shape the policy. So the equation becomes, if Arab is illogical, then self-ruling is dangerous. And then foreign rule becomes responsible. And if we go to France, the anthology is not any better. In 1885, French Prime Minister Jules Ferry defended colonization in Parliament with this blunt doctrine. He said, the superior races have a right, a duty, to civilize the inferior races. That's documented in the Assemblée Nationale. That's the National Assembly of France. It's a public official statement. It's not a footnote of history. That's an instruction manual. And it wasn't only politicians. European intellectual culture gave empire a scientific costume. Historian Jan Goldstein cites Ernest Renan boasting the Semitic race, which is the Arabs. Today we relate the word Semitic with Jews, but the Semitic are both actually the Asian Jews, and the Arabs are all Semites, the Arab Jews. An inferior, he says, the Semitic race is an inferior combination of a human nature. So people get placed into ideological cages then punished for not developing fast enough inside it. See, empires don't conquer land, they conquer the definition of the conquered. And that's the first steps of conquering. Then colonialism upgrades its branding. They don't call their occupation. They brand it as international law. They don't say we rule you. We say we prepare you. Listen to the logic in Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations, which is the mandate system. It describes peoples not yet able to stand by themselves under the strenuous conditions of modern world, and then calls a sacred trust of civilization sacred trust. Beautiful words for a very ugly reality. Your independence becomes graduation that you never reach because the teacher writes the exam and grades. So the external war on Arab identity becomes bureaucratic. You can speak but not decide. You can have a flag but not full control. You can vote but within borders and economies designed very specifically for you that will satisfy the needs and desires of the superior nations. And we don't need to go back so much to history because we have a colonial display, we have a colonial exhibit right in front of our eyes, which is Palestine. What is more clearer than the way colonialism deals with a part of the Arab world that is indivisible of the Arab state and the Arab world and the Arab nation, which is Palestine? A segment of the Arab world that colonialism has decided to build their military bases in. Today, after the genocide of Gaza, the Holocaust of Gaza, the erasure and ethnic cleansing of Gaza, one of the genociders, the President of the United States of America, creates a board of genociders to develop this land, territory, because it's only seen as territory and the people on it as insects, to develop it for economical purposes, to build a European and Western vision of what they consider a developed land. Over the mass graves of children and the demolished historical sites, mosques and churches of Gaza. Over a demolished history, Gaza is one of the most important cities in the Islamic world and in Islamic history. It has graves of great Arabs before Islam and after Islam, great Muslims since it has been has entered into the Islamic fold in the early 8th or 7th century. So we get to the clearest example of the external war on identity in Palestine, where identity collides with land, memory, and law. And we can start earlier. We can start with Balfour, or we can start with the founding of the Jewish Zionist movement, because before Zionism was Jewish, it was born as Christian. And right here in the United States, the first Zionist conference was in the United States in 1840 in Chicago. Read more about it. That's before Herzl even was aware of such a thing. But in the Zionist, the Jewish Zionism, the political Zionism created by Theodor Herzl, in his diaries of June 1895, he writes, "We shall try to spirit the penniless population across the border." He calls it penniless. tries as a journalist to use the least offending and insulting word he can, and basically calls ethnic cleansing as spiriting them across the border. So you have to be careful of the colonial language. It comes dressed in very well suits, but it's bloody barbaric underneath. Like we see today, even within internal American politics, where a toddler gets arrested and shipped across the nation away from her mother, where a mother gets shot in her car 3 times on the face and in the heart. Even if someone wants to debate context, the core is clear. Population removal is already in the imagination of the founding of the Zionist movement. Herzl might not have thought that it will come to that point, and he died in 1907, way before the the implementation of the full Zionist plan. And Zionism has gone through so many changes since then, but the language has been all the way the same. It is establishing a colonial state, disregarding the wishes and will and the right of self-determination and the human rights of the original population. Then Arthur Balfour comes and the tone shifts from imagination into administration. 1917, the Balfour Declaration. And then in a memo in 1919, he says, Zionism is a far profounder import than 700,000 Arabs. And this same memo contains the line that should freeze the blood of anyone who claims colonialism was about democracy. He says, we do not propose even to go through the form of consulting of the inhabitants. Not even just a form of consulting, not a real consulting, but even just doing this play that's always played on us and named consulting. He says we don't even need to do that. These people are so inferior that we don't need to even pretend that we're consulting them. This is Lord Balfour in 1909. Not even the theater of consent. The external war on identity becomes this. You are present, but politically irrelevant. You exist, but your will is an inconvenience. That's not only occupation of territory, that's attempted erasure of peoplehood, the right to be a we. And of course, then comes Psyche Pico, where the map becomes clear. Geography becomes a weapon. Psyche Pico wasn't just a line, it was a system. In the agreement text, Britain and France claim priority of right of enterprise and local loans. So not only it is dividing these lands, but also claiming all of its rights economically and industrially. They say, we shall alone supply advisors, even advising, even the mind of governing and administering ourselves shall not be made without foreign advisors. The same thing as we see today. The board of genocide that's being created by Trump is basically bringing people from all over the world to decide the fate of this ethnically cleansed city of Gaza without having one Gazan in that board. So even when they say independent Arab states, they design dependency inside the sentence. The result is predictable. Fragmentation becomes normal. Unity becomes extremism. And every attempt at regional cooperation is treated as a threat to stability. This is how identity gets attacked without banning identity. You keep the word Arab, but you break the structures that could make it politically meaningful. Today, if you are an Arab and you adopt the plans of colonialism, whether you are aware of it or not, and most probably you're not aware of it, we are not aware of it. We are working, and this program's goal is to open our eyes to the plans that we are implementing. These maps that have been drawn to us since Sykes-Picot in the whole Arab world, from Morocco and Mauritania to Ras Al Khaimah and Al Mosul, these plans and maps have been drawn to us by colonialists for their own pure benefit. And the systems put in place and approved and supported and given weapons and given legitimacy and given foreign advisors, these systems are placed to emphasize colonial plans with Arab faces. Yes, I am going to be very realistic here, and I'm not going to say all these are invalid. We're going to work with status quo. It has been over 100 years of colonialism, and they have drawn these stupid lines and named these stupid countries. If you think that you're a Qatari or an Iraqi or Egyptian or Libyan, and it means anything in terms of division from your whole Arab world, if you are from Jordan and you think Baghdad doesn't belong to you and Ribat doesn't belong to you, someone has convinced you that you have nothing to do with Khartoum and you have nothing to do with Muscat, although they are your cities, your grandparents' cities. Your grandparents fought and bled and died to protect and free these cities one by one. And they planted plants that fruits went to these cities, and they have written books that have educated people in these cities, and your DNA is spread over every dot of sand across these nations. And for some reason now, the colonialist and the colonial system over you and the Arabic face of this colonial system has convinced you that you belong in Amman, across from the Jordan River, and all the way to the Busra, Al Iraq, and all the way to Al Yarmouk, and then you have nothing to do with what's below that or above that or right of that or left of that. Then this is you being asleep. You have to reject that notion. You have to not give up your right of your Arab identity and your right for self-determination and your right for being among your nation and your people. And we're not saying that in terms of Arabic ethnicity. Again, I said in the beginning that the Arab identity is a cultural identity that unites all of this region together because they have a common taste and a common imagination and a common history and a common collective aspirations and desires. And they have a large shared values and traditions. And they are also threatened together. And their success is dependent on each other. There is no existence among them separate, and there is no renaissance for them to be separate, and there is only a hope for them to be in prosperity if they function together. But again, we're going to accept the status quo and say these countries are these countries now, but let's not forget history, and let's not take these borders too seriously, and let's aspire for getting back our dream first that they have prohibited us from dreaming, And as Golda Meir says, this who doesn't dream is not realistic. And second, to move forward with steps to erase the aggression of these borders to our identity through a confederation, cooperation, free market, common market, agreements of defense, etc. I see that there are some comments coming, and I promise you that we will get to them at the end of this episode in a few minutes. So let me give you an example how the external war attacks the Arab identity, and it becomes clear sometimes. Now we move from borders to sovereignty. The moment a country tries to control its own arteries, then it's labeled as an enemy. Just by moves to have sovereignty, to have independence, to look after its people and its economic renaissance and its political independence, it becomes an enemy in the eyes of the West. So don't be fooled by any of the values that they sing of human rights and the consent of the governed, what President Wilson in the in the early 20th century, 1920, he used to preach but never practiced. And the administration threw out the King Crane Commission report after it was finalized. And look up King Crane Commission to understand that history. That's the only American document that has asked the people once in our region of the larger Syria and the Arab world of what they want. And that report was taken and thrown in the garbage immediately afterwards. Although you can buy it on Amazon and read it for yourself. King Crane Commission report. 1956, for example, Egypt nationalizes the Suez Canal. What follows is immediately invasion by Israel, Britain, and France. Britannica summarizes Anglo-French aims as securing the canal and possibly toppling Nasser, striking a blow against Arab, what they call radicalism. So us wanting to own our own resources, that becomes called Arab radicalism. So the message is clear. You can exist, but don't own your stuff. Don't let our hands off your choke points. You can wave a flag, but don't touch the engine. That's not history. That's a pattern. You can do a FIFA, you can host a FIFA, and you can sit and wave your small flags of Bahrain and Morocco and be happy for a goal here and a goal there. But never think of building a train track from Ribat to Doha. Never think of creating any type of agreement for oil or for gas or for electricity or for common education or common defense, because they're not going to let you do it. And then the war of words, even words, they have taken our agency of calling our region and the names that we wish to name. The word Middle East versus the word Arab word. Now we reach one of the stealthiest weapons that the external war attacks us with, is the war of naming. There is a reason why many Arab intellectuals prefer the Arab word over the Middle East, because the Middle East is not a neutral name. It's a geopolitical frame invented from somebody else's map, an academic summary from a colonial notes. The terms rise in imperial strategy circles, often attributed to Alfred Thayer in 1902 writings on the Persian Gulf region. And one commonly cited Meehan lines goes, "The Middle East, if I may adopt the term," that's the first time that this term has been adopted, and that was written in the context of colonialism as far as Britain is concerned. It is only the Middle East for Britain. For India and China is the East, and this Arab region is the Middle East. So why would they call it the Arab world and then they give us the name that we call ourselves? They have to remove our agency in order for them to subjugate us. So they call us the Middle East, only relative to Britain, and turning us into only a geographical region with no identity, depriving us from the name. That's why, and this is important over here, I am against the efforts in the United States for the ethnic to define our ethnicity as MENA. Although it would be a good step forward, and I do understand and support this direction of the effort pragmatically, and I'm a pragmatic guy, but the word that we should actually fight for is the Arab identity. I am an Arab American, and this is how I should identify on the census. And they say, oh, but some people in the Arab world do not want to be identified as Arab world. Well, this is one of the results of colonialism. When a Kurd Arab or an Assyrian Arab or a Chaldean Arab, they start seeing Arabism as opposite to their ethnic identity. When was that ever true in history? When did the Chaldean ever had a problem with being an Arab, or the Assyrian had ever a problem with being an Arab, or the Kurd has ever a problem with being an Arab, or the Arab Jew has ever a problem with being an Arab? Until colonialism started in the region. Yes, there were mistakes by movements that were national Arab movements that turned into fascist movements, and they did their mistakes, but that doesn't change the theory. Don't let someone deprive you from your Arab identity, because we have integrating identities. As much as I am an Arab and I am American, I am an Arab American, and I can be a Muslim Arab, and I can be a Christian Arab, and I can be an Assyrian Arab, and I can be an Egyptian Arab, and I can be anything, as long as I enjoy and feel that the Arab cuisine is my cuisine, and the Arab music is my music, and the Arab art is my art, and the Arab calligraphy is my calligraphy, and I enjoy Arab poetry, and I enjoy Kulthum, then you are an Arab. But listen, you have the right of accepting an identity or rejecting an identity, and that's fine. But I'm not going to change my identity because there's a few individuals who do not anymore want to identify in this integrating identity. The same as in America. If some Latino Americans do not want to identify as Americans anymore, that doesn't mean that we're going to change the American identity. And that's my opinion at the end of the day, but I'd like to present it here strongly. So they defined us as a zone, not as a civilization, an oil corridor, a security problem, a buffer. Do you know how they drew the Sykes-Picot line? He said Britain basically wanted to have oil line from Kirkuk to the port of Haifa. Of course, that plan changed later, and it was implemented, but with a little bit of different plan. And it's still, that pipe still exists today, and it has two routes to the shore. He said, draw a line from the first H in Haifa to the last K in Kirkuk. And this is how the line was drawn, which today defines the border between Lebanon and Palestine, the border between Syria and Jordan. And, Iraq was going to be split in half, but that later they negotiated and exchanged the full control of France over Syria and Lebanon for Mosul, North Iraq, and Britain took more North Iraq, and that's why Mosul is part of Iraq, is because against the original Sykes-Picot plans, is because they didn't exchange Britain and France later. Notice that within all this context, there's never a question asked about the Arabs, or there was no anthropologist or sociologist on the table to say, oh, this will split this tribe and will split this family, and this is because you are insects. You are not supposed to be asked. You are inferior people who have you're barbaric, you're savages, and that is what the colonialists see in you, and you'll never, ever, not in the past, and not now, and not in the future, be worthy of being asked your opinion. And when they do, it's not sincere. The only time that it will be sincere is when there are true humanists who are in power, when there are true human beings who care about human rights and the true enlightenment values of Europe. When there are true people like this, then these people will see you as humans. But every test revealed to you these people. And the last test was Gaza. So you know the countries that are true to their values, and you know the countries that aren't from Gaza. And thank you, Gaza, for showing us a very clear test for that. So today, the war expands into the digital realm. I want to jump into the reality today. It's not just censorship by law, by censorship by design. You know, the external war on against Arab identity has so many faces, and we can do so many episodes on it. It is the war on memory, where your memory, your historical houses. Where is the house of Adham Khanjar? Where is the house of Sultan al-Atrach? Why are these destroyed? Why are these erased? Your history is erased. The Egyptian museum was totally destroyed. The old olive trees have been plucked from South Lebanon and taken to the occupied Palestine by the Zionist Israeli forces. Why? Why do they attack your memory? Your memory is being attacked. Your name is being attacked. Your language is being attacked. Today, they want to strengthen the small secondary languages in the Arab world to erase the Arab language. There are tons of US aid grants for any type of strengthening of cultural languages, secondary languages, secondary any type of ethnicities that can be strengthened. And then there are efforts to subdue the Arab identity and the Arab language. We saw it clear in South Sudan. South Sudan was cut off from the rest of Sudan, and it has a mix of ethnicities and tribal regions. But the most common language of South Sudan is the Arabic language. Guess what's the official language today of South Sudan? It is English. The national anthem sung in English for a population that doesn't speak English. Eritrea, the same thing. Eritrea is an Arabic country. It is not part of the Arab League because it just didn't join, but it is totally qualified to be in the Arab League, and it's an Arab country with a majority Arab speakers, and they reckon themselves as Arabs. Today, the Amazighi language is being strengthened, is being given letters. And don't get me wrong, I am totally in support of celebrating and strengthening ethnic identities within the Arab world. This is richness to the Arab world and richness to the people. And I am with strengthening the language of the Kurds and Amazighi and Tawarig and all the ethnicities in the Arab world. This is only strength and beauty in our culture. But it's being used by colonialists to erase Arabic language. Today, there has been negotiation by Western powers with Morocco to make other languages, the secondary languages, official in the country. The same thing is, happened in Syria recently. And we're not against strengthening these languages, but there is nothing that supports Arabic language. And today, with the digital existence, this might be amplified more and more. So, to come to an ending to my presentation, the Digital Rights Group have documented patterns of content restriction and takedowns affecting Palestinian content and narratives across platform. Fighting the Palestinian issue is fighting Arab identity. Palestinian issue is the heart of Arab identity. And since we are speaking honestly, this matters intensely in the era of the genocide in Gaza. The narrative suppression becomes a second battlefield. What people are allowed to see, share, and remember is what is a tool of war. So what do we do? So here's the ending, and I want you to take home uh, not as motivation, but as a plan. So first of all, we have to produce our own narrative. We have to write, we have to record, we have to interview your parents, interview your grandparents, produce, write, document. Don't worry about the number of viewers. You are suppressed, you are shadow banned, and the Arab people, Arab Americans and Arab in the Arab world, they are busy with silly things, with all due respect. I have friends that spends hours a week in playing cards, but not 5 minutes a year in supporting their identity or their future. We are totally sleeping about our priorities. Yet, those of us who have that consciousness, who have that awareness, must fight, and you must create content. This content will stay. Right now, there are few people watching this episode. I don't care if there are few people, many people, 100,000, 5. I don't even look at the views afterwards, but we are creating contents for our children, for our grandchildren, content that can be used later for those who look for it. For those who search on the internet, they'll find it among the ocean of paid content to strip you from your identity and to bury you. Israel pays $7,000 per post for influencers to suppress the Palestinian narrative. And we are sleeping. Archive your family. Your story is not a detail, it's a historical document. Second, fund culture. Buy books, attend readings, support artists, share serious work. Culture doesn't survive on applause, it survives on infrastructure. Third, teach Arabic with love, not as punishment, not as Saturday schools. Teach it at home, teach it as a song, teach it as a meal, teach it as intimacy, a bedtime story, a joke, a phrase at dinner, a game. Fourth, never outsource your definition. If you don't define yourself with dignity, someone else will define you for their convenience. Fifth, make the center your base, not your venue. Make cultural centers and Arab identity centers and programs. Here in Dearborn, we have the Arab American National Museum. We have few cultural organizations. This is not a whole, this is a platform. Propose programs, create programs, create activities in these places, volunteer skills, build programs. They are your institutions. They are not going to survive by themselves. They will need you. The external war on the Arab identity is not destiny. It's a set of tools, choices, and narratives. And anything built by tools can be dismantled by tools. We end with one question, not for poetry, but for action. How do we protect our identity from being defined from the outside and turn it into a bridge to the future, not a prison of the past? Thank you. And now I will come to the audience notes. All right. Arab world has been one from 7th till 12th century. Thank you. It has been. We need United Arab States. I have proposed in my book, The Awaited Arab State, a confederation, and we definitely need that. And that's the only way for us to move forward. And this is not a dream or a slogans. This is realistic. Dr. Ali Allawi, the deputy prime minister of Iraq, and the minister of economics, in his tenure, when he was before the last government, he was in the government in Iraq, has said in an interview with Reuters that one of the reasons that Iraq cannot move forward into an economic renaissance is because the area is fragmented in a way that no one country in the Arab world can sustain renaissance by itself. And then when an economic alliance is proposed, you see that United Arab Emirates is trying to work with India, Israel, and Greece. Why this fragmentation while you have all these countries around you? I salute the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the recent efforts of trying to work with Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, and Pakistan and Iran for their defense pack and economic activities, and also the new Sham project by the previous Iraqi Prime Minister Al-Kadhimi, who proposed coordination between Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt. It's inevitable. That's the only way to create solidarity and progress is through the region working together. There is no other way other than that. The whole world now is creating alliances, and those who don't have alliance are basically easy picks. Quran is in Arabic, and every Muslim should learn it. Yes, the Islamic identity, which mixes with Arab identity in many cases, it's the Islamic Arab civilization have intermixed together. Of course, present a very spiritual, strong protector of the Arabic language, and also Arabic language is a key towards this Islamic architecture and the infrastructure and architecture of knowledge and enlightenment. One important aspect is the standard Arabic language that's also being attacked and erased. You see all the programs on Arab TVs, which I haven't watched for decades, are mostly in non-formal Arabic. It's very important to also one of the most beautiful thing about this Arabic language that's very unique is that Old Arabic and New Arabic are the same. So people who speak Arabic, they first of all open up to 450 million, a world of 450 million people who can understand them, the standard Arabic. And it opens up to literature for the last 2,000 years that you can read and understand. If you pick up something written by some poet in the before Islam, you can still understand it today because the Arabic language has a continuity in it. Dr. Ali Ajami, I emphasize on the idea of keeping our memory safe and sound. A nation deprived from its memory is a nation put on the path of vanishing. Thank you, Dr. Ali, 100%. Watch The Voice of Hind Rajab. Yes, The Voice of Hind Rajab is playing in many theaters today. Please watch it. It's a very important film. Bring with you your American neighbors to watch it. It's playing here in the Detroit area in several theaters. There is a free showing also in the Civic Center of Dearborn. It's also showing in the Phoenix what do you call it? Phoenix theaters in Livonia and many other places. Write your own history. Thank you, Aisha, for your participation. Let us rewrite our own history ourselves. We had, after Around the World in the university last year, all countries had their stalls, very diverse yet unified experience. Amazing. Mostly Arab and Muslim countries. Thank you for your participation. Many Asian languages have more than 50% Arabic word. Indian, Turkish, Persian, Urdu have also many Arabic words. True, and the knowledge in Arabic language makes it easier to understand Urdu, Persian, Turkish, and Indian. Thank you for following this episode, and we come to an end of it. I hope that this inspires us for action in defending the Arab identity. We have more episodes planned for you. An upcoming episode 14, will be a very unique and important episode about how Arabs influenced and supported the formation of the United States of America. Very interesting information. We're going to have a professor with us specialized in this subject, and it will shed light on information that you probably haven't heard in this framing before. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for more to come.